Welcome to the Wellness Surge podcast with Dr. Adiola Oke. Each week, we discuss our wellness journey with real people like you and me. We have conversations about food, fitness, mental health, financial wellness, and much more, so you can get back to the real you. To make sure that you're up to date with this and other wellness topics, visit wellnesssurge.com. Information presented here is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. Please do not apply any of the information presented here without first speaking with your primary care provider. Now, let's head on to the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wellness Surge podcast. My name is Dr. Adiola Oke, and today I have with me Mrs. Latisha Ojuriye. Alrighty, we're going to be talking about how to raise an emotionally and socially successful child. Say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing great today.
Alrighty, so Mrs. Latisha Ojuriye is a nationally certified school psychologist, an educator, a child and parent relationship trainer. We all need that one, right? A business owner, a Muslimah Champion of change. She is the owner of Kareem Education Consulting Services, where she is equipped to provide school psychologist services to 25% of the United States. That's huge. She inspires resilience and compassion as she brings a personal and professional perspective to her scope of practice that leaves students and families equipped to affect change in their lives, as improve the trajectory of their children's lives and familial relationships. She currently resides in Arizona with her husband. Alrighty, well, it's a pleasure having you here with us today. Thank you so much.
And it's a pleasure to be here. Dr. Oke, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Alrighty, so when you talk about school psychologists, right? I'm like, oh, what do they do? Do they just like test kids to know if they have like developmental disorders or like they have some issues with school? So can you please tell us, and we stop giving you guys like coming up with ideas of what you guys should be doing. Can you tell us exactly what a school psychologist does?
So that's a really great question. I'm glad you started off with the testing part, because for the most part, when I tell people I'm a school psychologist, they say, are you like a counselor, like a school counselor? And I tell people that's one component, right? That's school-based counseling, making sure that the students on our campus are socially and emotionally well, making sure the campus is safe. But you are absolutely right. The meat of what we do is that psychoeducational assessment. However, how we do that is very unique. So school psychologists, I think we are very skilled team members on a multiple disciplinary education team that looks at, does this child need special education services? Is there a learning concern? Is there a behavioral or emotional concern? We develop a hypothesis statement, and then we seek to find that information through educational testing, cognitive testing, behavioral testing, academic testing, but we're not limited in that only. What we do is have a whole child approach perspective. So we combine various aspects of psychology to determine that. We combine educational psychology, developmental psychology, community psychology, the social and developmental history of a child. How is a child living in their home at the present moment? Bringing those family dynamics. So we're not just looking at learning as an isolated situation. We're also looking at the child from a whole child perspective. Is there something going on in this child's life maybe now that was not going on before, that may be bringing up these behavioral concerns or these learning concerns? So the beauty about being a school psychologist, some of my friends, they call us the gatekeepers of special education, because we know special education law so well. But I think it's not only that testing and assessment, it's also being like present on the campus and making sure all of our students are students who have individual education plans, who qualify for special education services, and also our students who are without those services. They feel safe and they feel loved and they feel welcomed on the campus. So I would say that we're family advocates, we're student advocates, we're community advocates, and we are campus advocates for our schools and the school community at large.
Alrighty, so the nitty gritty, let's get to the basics. Why we're here today. what is social and emotional intelligence and why is it important?
Okay, so that's a really good question. First, I'm going to start off with just a little caveat. What we're seeing now in schools more so than ever is that schools are pushing to teach children about social and emotional intelligence, and there's a reason why. So social and emotional intelligence is the process in which children and adults learn how to manage emotions, learn how to set goals, learn how to have healthy relationships, learn how to solve conflicts, right? And so what we've learned in psychology, and I think what we've always known, is that we cannot wait until a person becomes an adult to think that this adult have those skills that are socially and emotionally positive. So if we start teaching it to children now, right, as they grow and as they go through puberty and as they become adults, they'll be equipped with those skills, right? So why is social and emotional intelligence so important? Think about all of the things I said. We want to know how to manage our emotions, right? So if we do not have that healthy social and emotional intelligence, when we are faced with a conflict or a problem, which all of us will be faced with them, we will choose options that are not healthy, which could be violence, which could be physical violence or verbal violence, right? It could be becoming socially maladjusted. You find that people who do not have good social and emotional intelligence, they tend to choose other routes like substance abuse, promiscuity, and those types of things. So if we start teaching these skills early on, it really helps a child develop into a healthy adult. And that's super important. No one's life is conflict free. That is not going to happen. You cannot find it anywhere, right? But I think it's important that we teach these skills early. And even if we are adults, it is important that if you do not have the skills, there are all types of services out there, all types of free classes or community-based classes and workshops that you can attend, because if you have children, you want to make sure that you're modeling those socially appropriate behaviors to your children or the children who are in your lives, because children learn through observational learning and through modeling. Okay, so that's why social emotional intelligence is so important.
Okay, very good. Yes. Yes, I think we all need a little of that in our life. Absolutely. There's always some conflict going on, and we need to know how to address that appropriately. So yes, this is like the really one that I need right now. How can families improve the social and emotional intelligence of their children? Because yeah, I got 5 of them, so I need tips. So how can we do that?
So that's very beautiful. I think families can improve by being first self-aware, right? So when we think about social and emotional intelligence, like I said prior, it's the way children and adults manage. I didn't say just the way children manage, but I know for sure that if we start off with the children, then, we'll see a change. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm not Peter Pan. I'm not aging backwards, or I think it was Benjamin Button in one of those movies where the person was aging backwards, right? We're aging forward, right? And so we're relying on our greatest investment, the children, to take care of us.
Yes.
As we age, right? And so what we want to do, we want to make sure that we are socially and emotionally sound, because again, and I cannot stress this enough, children learn through observational learning. They are looking at what the adults do in their life. It is healthy for a child to see families have conflict, not fighting and punching, but it's healthy for them to see, okay, mom and dad have conflict, auntie and uncle have conflict, or whoever's raising that child in their life have conflict. But what makes it healthier is when they see the family resolve the conflict in a healthy way. Okay, we have this problem. Every problem has a solution. Problems are not necessarily bad. Every problem has a solution. The concern is when we have these perpetual crises that do not have a solution. And they're repetitive, perpetual crises that never change, and we never have a solution. A problem is healthy. especially if we have a healthy solution at the other end of that problem. So for parents, and this is just something I want to share, it's something I do with the children in my family. I'm very blessed. I have 8 nieces and nephews whom I absolutely adore. They live in New Jersey and North Carolina, and usually every year, 2 of them I spend, they spend the summer with me for a month here in Arizona, or I make sure I see them, but due to COVID, that has not happened this year, but we talk at least 3 times a week. And just to see how beautifully they have been developing, over their little lifespans, they're 10 and 15, is just so amazing to me, the maturity. And I'm like, okay, some of the things that my brother and my family and I, the things that we are investing in them, we're seeing some of the return on the investment, which is absolutely positive. So for adults, you have to make sure that you have good social and emotional soundness, that you have that self-awareness, right? That you learn proper tools to solve conflicts in your life, that you are inviting positive and healthy relationships in your life. Your children are able to see that. You want to make sure that, so as you can see it, I'm not talking about how to raise a socially and emotionally healthy child. I'm saying to the parent, first, be self-aware.
Yeah, but you're talking about tools though. So for someone that has no clue, right? Like we're talking tools. What tools?
So the tool, I think, first is for the parent to be self-aware.
Okay.
Right.
All righty. You got it.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Okay.
For the parent, right?
Okay.
There are tons of things, let's just say in the community, maybe community-based. How do you have a healthy relationship with your child, right? Okay, so a tool, I'll give you a tool. So the first one that I always go back to is self-awareness. The person has to be self-aware so we can project that self-awareness onto the child. Another tool is this. Okay, so here goes. There is a course that I used to teach called the Child and Parent Relationship. It was literally called CPR. It's a training, right? And so when we think about CPR, we're thinking about resuscitating a person, but this is child and parent relationship training. You're talking about resuscitating the relationship between you and your child. And that particular training focused on the parent spending 30 minutes a week with the child, uninterrupted playtime, right? Uninterrupted 30 minutes with your child. So if you have children who are 10 or younger, you spend like that 30 minutes with the child, you're encouraging the child, you're doing more encouragement than praising, meaning you are allowing the child to pull from their own strength. Raheem, I see that you were really working hard to pass that test this week, even though you got a 70 or 80%, you put forth a lot of effort. You studied every night for like 30 minutes, and it looks like you really were trying really hard to get that done. What that does is it pulls from the child's strength versus every time a child only gets an A or only gets a B on a test or something like that. You're so smart, you're so wonderful, you're so great, because those type of things come from what the parent thinks about the child versus the child being able to pull from their own strength and their own perseverance, right? So what we believe in psychology and anything regarding a child, children have what it takes to pull from the environment. And I think sometimes we underestimate children and think, oh no, they don't understand what's going on around them. They have what it takes to have their needs met through the environment. So what I would encourage parents to do is spend 30 minutes of uninterrupted time with your children where there are no phones around. These phones are just taking over our lives. 30 minutes of uninterrupted time. Play with your child. You'll be surprised as an adult how playing with a child pull something from you when you're able to reminisce on your own childhood and how you grew up, right? We tend to parent how we were parented, right? There's nothing wrong with getting some extra parenting tips and extra parenting classes. Another thing I want parents to do, I want us to think about when we have a donut, right? And this is one of the techniques in the child and parent relationship workshop that I used to teach. When we have a donut, we're not looking at what's missing from that donut. Even though a donut has a hole, sometimes I forget when I'm eating a donut, I forget that there's something missing from the donut, right? Because I'm focused on all the yummy stuff on the outside and eating that donut. Focus on the relationship that you have with your child. Don't focus on what's missing, right? So if I think about it from a donut perspective, I'm not thinking, oh goodness, there's this big hole in the middle of this donut, right? I need to fill it up with something. I'm focusing on all the yummy stuff on the outside. So focus on the relationship. Do not focus on what's missing. Spend that 30 minutes a week of uninterrupted time with your child. If you have 5 children, try to set, I know this sounds like a lot, and especially with our busy lives, but give each one of them that 30 minutes of just you and them playing. Whether you go outside, you roll a ball.
Yeah, it's easy with the little ones, but those teenagers, and so all those things you're saying, they're all for me. I'm very selfish. So when I invite somebody on, it's because I want to learn something. Okay.
Yeah.
So because I want to learn something. And most people do have that child, right? That they're like, oh, we just can't, I just can't get it right. I just can't get it right. So when I invite someone, it's like, I want to learn something. So I hope people are also getting tips. When I'm like, give me tools, you're just telling me tools. Tell me what I should be doing. so I got it. Okay. But those teenagers, it's a little trickier, right? I can play with the little ones. It's no biggie. But the teenagers, especially the one that doesn't want to communicate with you, how do you go about breaking that ice, you know?
So according to, and I'm going to throw in a little developmental psychology in here, one of my favorite theorists was Erickson, right? And Erickson goes over the different stages of development. And as we know, when teenagers get to those years, peer influence is more important than parent influence, right? Okay. What I'm thinking is this with our teenagers, because I'm having the same concern with my niece who's 15, who used to think the sun would rise on me. And I you know, she would write me these cards. I have all of them that are misspelled, you know, but telling me how much she loves me. And I save them all, right? But now she's 15 and sometimes I call her and she doesn't want to talk or she's busy or doing something like that. And I'm like, goodness gracious. Okay, imagine if I had my own child, I would be heartbroken. She's my niece and I'm heartbroken. But what we want to do is we have to understand the position that they're at. They're teenagers. Peer influence is more important than parent influence. And again, we want to focus on what is there. So the kid does not want to talk. Now that statement is not completely true because I hear all parents say that. They just don't want to talk. So you mean to tell me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this kid doesn't say nothing at all to you ever? Now, could you... Dr. Adiola, that can't be the case, right?
No, that's not the case.
You're probably looking at the kid from when they were like 7 or 8 and they thought the world of you.
Yes, and now, like, oh, where's my baby?
I know.
What happened? No. But, you know, it's equally the parents' fault. You know, it's like, we truly realize this child is grown. She's or he's his own person, whatever. And so yes, okay, I got it. So let me just rehash what self-awareness for the parents, right? Think like a donut. Think about what's present there, not what's missing. 30 minutes per week with your child.
30 minutes per week, because if you think about it, like in your case, you have 5 children. Most people I know have multiple, like 3, 4, 5 children. You spend time with your children automatically, right, throughout the day. But the time that I'm talking about is uninterrupted time with that one specific child per week. Now, can you spend 30 minutes a day with 5 children and manage all of that would be difficult. You would probably be like, why did I invite her on the show? She's giving us some really bad advice, right? So, no, I'm not saying that. Designate 30 minutes. So with your younger ones who are 10 and younger, right? And do not rule out that the older ones, the teenagers, they don't want to participate in play. Their play may look a little different. Maybe with the older ones, it'll be a walk. No, come on, let's just take a walk. You know, allow them to talk to you. You know, one of the main problems that we're having is that a lot of our teenagers and a lot of adults as well, that goes back to those boundaries, that social emotional intelligence, that self-awareness, that building healthy relationships. We do not have boundaries as it relates to technology. Mm-hmm. So our whole lives are spent sort of kind of socially disconnected, right? Emotionally disconnected, all of the things that we want. And this is even for adults. It's not just for children. This is why I'm turning the mirror back on us as the adults. I'm purposely doing this, right? Yeah. So the point that I wanted to make, the little ones, you'll play with them. They'll enjoy the play. Come on, let's roll a ball. Let's play doll, right? Dolls with your dolls. If you have sons, your sons, believe it or not, can play with dolls and trucks. Why can't a son play with dolls and trucks? One day, maybe he'll become a dad. He'll have to know how to take care of a little baby as well, right? So that's just a little caveat, right? Mm-hmm. A little caveat. So the point that I'm trying to make with the older ones, maybe that 30 minutes of uninterrupted time will look like a walk. You know, let's go and get some ice cream. Let's talk. How are things going? Let them open up organically. Pull from their critical thinking skills. Find out what's going on in their life, not through yes or no questions, but through those open-ended questions. Tell them some things that are going on in your life that you're working on, and ask them, what do you think about it? Like, can you give me some advice? Like, what would you do? We will be so surprised how amazing the kids are in our lives, the teenagers are. They know so much stuff. It is amazing to me.
Yes.
And it's just us valuing what they know, sharing what's going on in our lives. Sometimes as parents, they know we have stuff going on. They know we're working on things, but we don't always allow them to be a part of that. So allow them to be a part of that. Another thing that I wanted to share as well, families, it is so important that we produce children who are critical thinkers. We do not want children to be limited in their thinking and only go by what they see maybe perhaps on television or what their friends are telling them. Encourage them to have an opinion, even if the opinion sometimes is opposite of what our household opinion is. That would allow us to understand the child a little bit better. Sometimes our children do not open up to us, or the children in our lives do not open up to us because they're afraid, like, my mom is going to think that's a stupid thing that I'm saying, or it doesn't make sense. Sometimes if they say things that we don't agree with, we can always probe a little more. We can make it a discussion, right? Where they're having more options. So we want to have not only children who are socially and emotionally intelligent, we also want to have children who are critical thinkers, because these children will become adults one day.
So let me break that critical thinking down, because yes, that's a word that it's for some it may be a little heavy. So when you say critical thinking, I'm thinking like, this is how I do with my kids. I like some, they have some, don't let me say this is how I do with my kids, but I know some people that they tell their kids every single thing they're supposed to do down to the nitty gritty. I want my child to use their brain to figure out what they're supposed to do. Like, what do you think? What do you think? And then you do it how you want. Is that what you mean by critical thinking?
That's what I mean by critical thinking. And necessarily at the end, it's not always that you do it the way you want, but giving that child some options. We're still the adults in these child's lives, so we have to make sure that the options are safe, right?
Yes.
I shouldn't say the options. I'll get to options in 1 second. We want to make sure that the options are safe. We also want to make sure that that final decision is a safe decision for the child and also a safe decision for the whole family. Because if you ask the average 8 or 10-year-old, what would you like tonight for dinner? Every single night they're going to say pizza, right? Every single night,
ice cream, candy.
Every single night they're gonna say candy.
And I'm like, I love you too much. I'm sorry, we can't have that.
Right. So we have to find balance in that, right?
Yes.
What would you like to do? I just want to play my video game all day and I just don't want to talk to anybody, right? So we're talking about healthy options. So when we're talking about critical thinking, again, if I go back, I say that children have the skills to have their needs met in the environment. Children, and research shows, like children who come from traumatic household environments, they still have a way, even though that traumatic household or abusive household environment, they have a way to have their needs met. Either it's through creative thinking, creative play, or imaginary play, like imagining that they're in a totally different environment. Their needs of love, their needs of self-awareness, their needs of protection are still met, even though it's imaginary. Just to throw that out there. So when you're thinking about children who come from healthy home environments, what we want to do is allow them to give them options. You do not want, as a adult in a child life, you have to tell them everything step by step. Sometimes I see, like, just because I work with so many people and children and families, sometimes you'll see a 19 or 20-year-old who cannot make a simple decision. And you say, wow. And
then call mommy.
Yeah. Right. And it's okay to call mommy because you respect her opinion, but it's another thing if you got to call mommy because you just do not have those simple thinking skills. And then when we think about critical thinking skills, we're like, okay, now we're in this situation and we don't know how to get out of maybe a more complex situation or even like basic, simple situations. So it's helping the child think through a process. It's allowing the child to pull from his or her own strength. And a lot of that comes through encouragement, having good communication with the child, having good conversations with the child, seeing where the child's thinking and mind is at, I think is absolutely awesome. Another thing, just to tie that in with this, and this is where I was trying to go with this, parents often set limits when there's no need to set a limit, right? And then we do not give children options. And I'll tell you what that looked like. A parent, and I come from an old school family background, Southern background, parents grew up in the South, grandparents, Southern. They would often tell us all the things we could not do. You can't do this, don't do this, I don't know if, people my age or a little older usually grew up in households like that, right? Don't do this, don't do that. But the parent rarely says, hey, I don't have to set these limits and telling you what you cannot do. Now, under normal circumstances, we want to tell our children, do not use drugs, those type of things we know. But, sometimes parents will tell a child, you don't do this, don't do that. Everything is a limit, right? And it's like the kid is not even, going in that direction to do those things. When we set limits, what we want to do is set them when we see, sometimes, not all the time, a concern, right? So do not set too many unnecessary limits, because what we'll do will restrict the child from exploring the environment, right? In a healthy way is what I'm trying to say. Another thing is, whenever we are setting a limit, whenever we say, okay, you can't have ice cream tonight for dinner, we want to give the child two healthy options, right? Or two options that would make sense. Okay, you can't have ice cream, but you can have yogurts with berries and granola, right? Frozen yogurt, or you can have piece of fruit, right? Even though you're choosing for that child, it would be very empowering if the child felt like, you know what, I can't have that, but I still have an option between these two things. Because when the child grow up in life, they're going to have tons of options, but you want to make sure that they're always choosing a healthy option or something as close to healthy as possible. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you're empowering your child through allowing them to choose. You're empowering them through allowing them to see their own strengths. Like I used the test example earlier, Bobby, you probably didn't get 100 on that test, but you studied at least 30 minutes every night for that test. Okay, you got an 80%. You're pulling back. You did this. You studied. And as a result of your studying and your effort and your hard work, I know that was difficult for you, and you were still able to achieve, this end result, right? So I hope that was helpful and that explained.
That did. It did. It brought it down to the basics. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. So yes, wow, we've been talking for a while now. So, what is the one thing? We've said a lot of things today, right? But what is the one thing you want to make sure that people take away from you today, even if they kind of like glossed over the rest?
Even if you glossed over the rest, know that, children are amazing. And they are our greatest investment. I know it's not easy. I can only imagine it's not easy being a parent, right? Or it's not easy raising a child, even if you're a family member raising a child, but know that they are amazing. Know that they're capable. Know that we're not aging backwards. So we nurture them in their youth so that they could nurture us in our old age, okay? And that's what we, as adults in children's lives, that's what we want, God willing. Spend that 30 minutes every week of uninterrupted time with your child, where no cell phone is important, no phone call for work is important. Nothing is more important than spending that 30 minutes of uninterrupted time with your child. And I think it's Maya Angelou who said it, that every person needs a rainbow in their cloud. And then another person said that every child needs a champion. These are just really important statements. So even if you're not a parent, if you're an auntie, if you're an uncle, whatever the situation is, just be a rainbow in a child's cloud, and also be a champion for the children, be an advocate. Children are very simple. All they want is love, sweets, safety, and those type of things. And I think as adults, if we're self-aware about where we sometimes fall short and get the support and help we need for ourselves, we're able to provide the children in our lives with those important supports that they may need.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful having you on the show. I have learned a couple of things, like I said, being a mother of 5, there will always be that one that I need some extra information and tips to walk this through. So thank you. Is there a way that people can get a hold of you if they like need your resources, need your skill set for like their schools or even for like their kids possibly, you know?
Yes.
Is there a way they can get a hold of you?
Sure. So if anyone ever wanted to get a hold of me for the child and parent relationship training class, it would be something I would do virtually, or I could do it as a group or individually. You could contact me at schoolpsychologist79@gmail.com. Exactly the way it sounds. The word school, psychologist, 79 at
the digits, right? 79 digits.
Yes, 79 digits. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. At Gmail?
Yeah, at gmail.com.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you so much, Mrs. Latisha Ojuriye. It was a pleasure having you. Let me say that again. School psychologist number 9 at gmail.com. Right. I think a couple of people could use some help with child-parent relationships. And yes, we just touched the surface. We didn't go deep. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful week. I'll see y'all in the next show. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Thank you for listening and sharing your precious time with us. If you enjoyed the show, then follow us and subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, or any app that carries podcasts. Have an awesome week. Best wishes to see you thrive.